Okay, so some eyebrows have been raised with new legislation that has been brought in by Nottinghamshire police. Now, I must admit, I must confess something in this regard. I wasn't aware to what extent that local laws could be devolved to local police forces. I guess this indicates that there is a certain amount of independence. Obviously, when it comes to crime, regions do have some variation across the nation. So I guess that would indicate that there is some devolution at play in terms of how local police forces operate. Anyway, Nottinghamshire, which is located in the English East Midlands, has brought in a hate crime law, or a hate crime charge, is perhaps the best way to describe it. And they're listing misogyny as a hate crime. Now, I think wording is very, very important. Misogyny, in its broad definition, in its purest definition, is hatred of women and girls. Um, but what this charge seems to be covering, it's including such things as catcalling, as well, but ostensibly it's to cover sexual harassment, right? But there's a few important things to look at with this. I'll just say, by the way, outright, I'm very wary about this new law. I'm not going to say I'm outright opposed to it because I don't know enough about the situation in Nottinghamshire to say that, but I am very wary of it. Because I think where you bring in this sort of broad sweeping law, like it's basically like saying we're going to bring in a law against hate, but where you define that is who gets to decide this. So the person who's chief officer of Nottinghamshire Police is, I don't know if they've taken it on themselves or if Nottinghamshire has a particular problem with sexual harassment. As far as I know, it doesn't have a reputation any better or worse than any other county or force in England and Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland have different jurisdictions. Um, But basically, what concerns me is how broad ranging the definition of this is. Now, if this was action against actual sexual harassment, that is to say, for example, women being groped when they're on public transport, women being stalked, that sort of thing, then I'd be absolutely 100% for it. There should, of course, be legislation against that. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm trivializing serious crime. The problem is this very broad ranging measure just seems to be very vague in what it is targeting. And apparently, I don't know if this is true, but apparently this will be including using terminology such as catfights, which of course is a informal term for two women in a physical altercation. That's a very widely used term by both men and women. Um, I mean, are we really getting to the point as a society where words that are slightly politically incorrect are becoming defined as hate? Are we really getting to that point? I'm just reading actually an article in I by Janet's Street Porter. This is the article in today's Eye. Catcalling is not hate crime. And I agree with her. I don't actually, I don't quite agree with those who said it's completely harmless. I don't think that, I think it's a bit inappropriate if you are, you know, men should control themselves. I agree with that. So I don't entirely agree with those who say it's completely harmless. I mean, put it this way, I wouldn't want my girlfriend to, have to put up with some builders sort of shouting out, "Oh, nice ass, honey," or something like that. I think some things are inappropriate. So, I'm not entirely to the other side where I think, oh, it's harmless. But I definitely don't think it should be classed as a hate crime. It's inappropriate. It's a bit crass. It's not a hate crime. So that's the issue I take with this, that this is being defined as hate. Um, if there is a debate to be had about the inappropriateness of catcalling, call it for what it is. It's harassment. It isn't hate. That's what bothers me about this law. It's being defined as something that it is not. And basically, what they're doing is they're putting, say, a woman being groped, which can be a frightening and completely inappropriate experience, and a woman being stalked in the same category as, let's say, two very confident women get into a physical altercation, and some guys are watching and they say, "Oh, look, it's a cat fight." I mean, are you really putting it in the same category? Because that's what Nottinghamshire police seem to be doing, and I think that is extremely problematic. Um, so just to summarise, yes, there should be action against actual harassment, but I think this is yet another example of nanny Britain, basically. And that's not to say that it's a whole country, but Nottinghamshire police need to really indicate why they are doing this and provide some justification for it. If there is a particular problem in Nottinghamshire with catcalling and with women being harassed, then maybe there does need to be some specific legislation. But what I have a problem with is throwing around words, loaded words like misogyny. It's stupid. Um, Misogyny should be a hate crime. I mean, that's who gets to define this? Of course, misogyny is wrong. Of course, hating women is wrong. But say, I mean, where do you draw the line? Are men going to be arrested for saying to their girlfriend, "You look beautiful"? Are guys going to be arrested for complimenting their female friends? Because then, put me in handcuffs right now. I've done that frequently. I've seen female friends post photos on the Facebook, and I've said, "Oh, you look wonderful," or "beautiful," etc. And you know what? They take it with the spirit in which it is intended, as a well-intentioned compliment. If I know a woman, if I know her well enough, I wouldn't do it to strangers. But if I knew a woman and we had a very good relationship, and she, posted a photograph where she is looking beautiful, I'm going to say, "You look beautiful," and I'm happy with the fact that my friends take it in the spirit in which it is intended. They're real women. They're not pathetic whingers who cannot see reason. And I totally get that there are. Say, for example, you had a guy who said, "Oh, bring your tits out," or strip naked or something. This is all about common sense. In the end of the day, it's about common sense, and basically, to me, this is Nottinghamshire police pandering to the Charlotte Proudman school of thought. You might recall Charlotte Proudman was the feminist lawyer who basically went to war with some colleague because he said she looked good. And to be clear, what he said was nothing sexualized, it was nothing, people need to really look at that if they think that she was in any way justified. But that seems to me that they're pandering to that. Now, there may be something I don't know. There may be something particularly going on in Nottinghamshire that does warrant this. But from the surface, it seems like it's unjustified and it is very, very widely abused. I mean, are they really going to go around the whole county of Nottinghamshire and arrest boyfriends or husbands for complimenting their partners? Give me a break. This has to be clearly defined. If you're going to bring in this sort of sweeping law like misogyny is a hate crime, then you have to clearly define it. And I think it is absurd to say that using the term catfight is a hate crime. And by the way, in the interest of equality, are they going to include this legislation for I don't know, drunken hen parties that shout out things to young men walking past? And by the way, that happens all the time. I've had it. I've went past pubs where there's been drunken women saying, because people think I look younger than I am. So, I get it and I don't really care. It's a bit annoying sometimes, but other than that, I'm sure as hell not going to run to the police about it. Where people clearly feel intimidated, where there's stalking, where there's clearly sexual harassment, yes, there should be action. But this all comes down to common sense. And I just think it's a very problematic law. Let me know your thoughts.